the heart of a scorching desert, where the sun burns like fire and kingdoms rise from sand, an ancient war changed the fate of an entire continent. This is the forgotten story of two unstoppable forces warriors, forged by heat, hardship, and honor. Today, you will discover the untold truth behind the clash of the desert warriors, a war that shaped empires. Long before armies marched with steel swords and iron shields, the desert created its own warriors. These were men and women raised in endless dunes, trained by survival, and guided by the stars. The Sahari, known as the Children of the Sand, mastered speed, stealth, and endurance. They moved through the harshest landscapes like ghosts, their knowledge of the terrain their greatest weapon. Their rivals, the Dunari Empire, were powerful horsemen clad in golden armor, their cavalry feared across the lands for its unmatched strategy and discipline. For centuries, these two forces shared the desert, their paths crossing in a delicate balance of trade and cautious respect. A fragile peace held the vast expanse together until a mysterious prophecy appeared. Deep within the ruins of an ancient temple, buried for ages, a scroll was uncovered. Its writings spoke of a leader from the dunes, a warrior born of sand and wind, who would rise and overthrow a great empire. When news of this prophecy reached the Gilded Palace, the Dunari Emperor, a man consumed by power and paranoia, grew fearful. He saw this prediction not as a myth, but as a direct threat to his throne. To crush any potential rebellion before it could begin, he issued a new, brutal law. Every tribe in the desert must bow to the Dunari Empire, renouncing their traditions and pledging absolute loyalty, or they would burn. The Sahari, a people who valued freedom above all else, refused. They would not bend. And with that defiant stand, the greatest desert war in history ignited. Under the cold light of the moon, the Sahari attacked first. Swift, silent, and unstoppable, they moved like shadows, their blades whispering through the night. They cut through enemy outposts, dismantled supply lines, and vanished back into the dunes before the alarms could be fully raised. The Dunari soldiers, accustomed to open field battles and fortified walls, were shocked. No fortress could stop warriors who traveled like the wind itself, who seemed to emerge from the very sand beneath their feet. But the Emperor, enraged by their audacity, was not finished. He was ready to unleash his full might. To crush the rebellion once and for all, the Emperor summoned his most elite and feared army, the Burning Legion. They were not just soldiers. They were instruments of destruction, known for setting entire swaths of the desert ablaze to destroy their enemies. They marched across the sands, leaving scorched earth in their wake. They burned Sahari villages to the ground, poisoned the precious few wells with salt and ash, and captured the elders, the keepers of Sahari lore. A wave of terror swept across the dunes. The desert cried in silence. But this brutality did not break the It united them. From every corner of the desert, the scattered tribes rallied under one leader, Henedal, the very man foretold in the prophecy. The stage was set for the final confrontation. Winds howled across the sands, kicking up a storm of fury as the two armies finally met. Swords clashed, and the air filled with the sounds of battle. The Burning Legion, a sea of black iron and fire, met the full strength of the united Sahari warriors. But Kellen, a master strategist, used the desert itself as his greatest weapon. He ordered his fighters to feign retreat, luring the overconfident Dunari army into the treacherous Devil's Valley, a maze of deep canyons and shifting dunes where the sand-swallowed horses in heavy armor became a death sentence. The Dunari were trapped, their disciplined formations breaking into chaos. But the cornered emperor had one last, terrifying move left to play. As his army floundered, the emperor unleashed his secret weapon, the Iron Serpent. It was a massive war machine, a rolling fortress of metal and wood pulled by 100 armored camels, firing enormous fireballs that arced across the dunes. The night sky lit up in a horrifying display of orange and red. Warriors screamed as the desert itself turned red with fire and blood. Kalen, wounded but his resolve unbreakable, gathered his best fighters for one last, desperate charge. They stormed the Iron Serpent, dodging fire and climbing its burning towers. In a final act of sacrifice and courage, they fought their way to its core and destroyed the war machine from within. As the serpent collapsed into a heap of smoldering ruin, the emperor fell with it. With their leader gone and their greatest weapon destroyed, the Denari Empire collapsed. Their soldiers, leaderless and demoralized, surrendered or fled. The Sahari had won. They reclaimed the desert, not as conquerors, but as guardians. Kellen had fulfilled the prophecy not by seizing an empire for himself, but by restoring the balance that had been broken. As the morning light touched the horizon, the desert was quiet. There were no victory cries, no parades. There was only the gentle whisper of the wind sweeping across the dunes, carrying with it the memory of those who had fallen. The war was over. The clash of the desert warriors was more than just a war. It was a battle for survival, a fight for freedom, and the fulfillment of a destiny written in the stars. And though the warriors themselves are long gone, their legend still lives in every grain of sand, in every story told around a desert campfire. Their spirit endures. If you want more epic, ancient battles, mysteries, and forgotten legends, subscribe now and join the journey into history's greatest secrets. Thanks for watching.